Okay, so welcome to another Friday Featured Business brought to you by Visibility Impact and your host, myself, James Moffat. And we have our 85th. Are you our 85th? I need to check. 85th guest. 𝗬𝗢𝗨𝗥, are you the 85th? Are we just checking there?
You tell me, James.
All right. Our 85th guest, 𝗬𝗢𝗨𝗥, who was going to tell us about her story and from childhood up to where she is now and the trials and tribulations on that journey, some memorable points and some exciting times that you want to share with the audience. The audience do have the opportunity to interact and ask questions as well as we go through this. But before we get going, we're going to have a song from our weekly singer. She can't be here live today, so we do have the recording, and I'm just going to switch over to that now. You're going to hear her, and then we'll come straight back. Oops.
Bravo, Emily.
Bravo. Well done, Emily. Right, so that's Emily, our weekly singer. So if you come on the show more often, you'll probably get her live. And we also have some specials we do at Christmas time and other times where there's lots of singing, lots of party games and just fun. So anyway, 𝗬𝗢𝗨𝗥, you are our 85th guest. Right, so what I want to do is put you on the stage and learn about you. So for the audience, if you can just tell us where you are now and where you are originally from.
So I am in the same place that I was originally from, even though I have done all manner of traveling and circuitous routes to come back here. So I'm in Johannesburg in South Africa.
Right. And any particular part of Johannesburg?
Yes, a suburb called Parkhurst, which is on a very large park, which is very beautiful. It's got a bird sanctuary. It's got Cubs grounds. It's a very nice part of Johannesburg with a whole street full of restaurants and little boutiques. So I can walk up to the streets, up to the restaurants, or down to the park, or just stay where I am.
All right. And what's it been like living in Johannesburg? Because I mean, you've gone through probably the apartheid years and everything. So growing up at school and everything, and then going kind of through that, and then to where you are now, you must have seen a lot of changes.
Absolutely. I mean, look, I think, you know, a white person's experience of apartheid in South Africa is obviously very different to a black person's. But, you know, things that I took for granted as a child, which I look at now and think, gosh, that was quite bizarre. I went to an all-girls school, and it was an all-girls white school. So about as insular and insulated as you can get. And the strange dichotomy of going to this beautiful 150-year-old school with the magnificent hall and all the girls in their uniforms. At the same time, while in a parallel universe, there was a state of emergency and townships were burning and people were being tear gassed. And, you know, living as a white person in South Africa, that reality just did not come into your reality at all. And so I was very young when I finished high school. I was only 17. And I look back now and think, gosh, there was so much that you didn't know. And it was designed that way. I mean, the apartheid government was very good at what they did. What they did was not in any way admirable by any stretch of the imagination, but they were very, very good at a whole bunch of propaganda, really, ultimately. And I think South Africans, certainly white South Africans, felt very besieged and felt very misunderstood. And so there was very much an us and them mentality in the country and from the country.
And now, how are things at the moment? I mean, do you still see that around, or has it kind of gone the opposite way? Or
yeah, look, I mean, South Africa is a complex place with all manner of stuff going on. I mean, we have 11 official languages. We have a population of about 55 million, of which about 40% is unemployed. We have mass immigration, and we have some incredible luminaries who've really conquered the world. I mean, you know, Elon Musk is South African, was born here, 𝗪𝗪 𝗪𝗪𝗪𝗪. And there was a very interesting article that I read a few years ago called Born in the RSA, but Big in the USA. And the absolutely overwhelming and disproportionate impact and influence that South Africans have had in the US. So in terms of an immigrant community, we're a rounding error. I mean, I think it's less than 0.2% of immigrants and 0.2% of the population are South African. But the kind of impact was just astonishing, disproportionate. We punch way above our weight. And so I think part of that is because we come from a very contested background, a very complex background, and there's a degree of resilience that's needed in a country that's as, in many ways, dysfunctional as South Africa. That certainly, I think, is missing in people who live in more functional, stable democracies and countries. You know, the Gini coefficient in South Africa is the highest in the world, so the income inequality is the worst in the world. I mean, we really are a country of extremes. So there's very little space for just cruising and being in equilibrium. And certainly every so often I'd love a little bit more equilibrium and a lot more functionality. But there is a sense of memory and identity living in South Africa that is a choice. I mean, I have traveled many places. I backpacked for 4 years. I've lived all over the world, worked all over the world, but I choose to be here. And so what I say on my LinkedIn profile is that I'm South African by birth, I'm African by choice, and I'm global in the work that I do. And that for me is the best of all worlds.
I admire you for that. And then the fact that you have traveled as well. I mean, you've seen beyond just what you see in South Africa.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been to, I think, 20 countries on the continent in Africa. And gosh, I don't even know how many countries in the world.
Yeah. So growing up, just taking you back to kind of memory lane. So growing up, you have any siblings?
Yes, I've got two younger sisters.
Right. And did they kind of do anything similar to you? I mean, traveled or are they still in South Africa?
No, they also followed in my footsteps. And so also went to a kibbutz, also did a fair amount of backpacking. And then my sister lived in the UK for quite a few years. My middle sister, she qualified as a chef there. And my youngest sister spent, I think, about 4 years in Nigeria with her husband and the kids, and then in Ghana, and then most recently in Kenya, and they've just moved to Amsterdam. So she loves seeing different things as well.
Right. So is there kind of I mean, I lived in the Netherlands. I mean, I lived in Utrecht and Amsterdam. So there was a kind of a lot of people there that were from South Africa, and they spoke Afrikaans, as I guess you do. Yeah. And yeah, there is an affiliation then for an attraction to go to the Netherlands.
Yes. Well, I mean, we were a Dutch colony from 1652 onwards, and then we were a British colony, and then we were part of the Commonwealth. So we've had two large colonial powers really impact the country. So, I mean, if you come down to Cape Town, the architecture is very much Cape Dutch architecture. I go to the Netherlands and it feels very familiar. I go to the UK and equally so. You know, our frame of reference was England and English books and reading Enid Blyton. So yeah, we have a fascinating mix and history, I think.
Yeah, because Afrikaans is actually kind of a mixture of English, Dutch, and some other bits and pieces, I guess.
Yes, well, it originally came from Dutch, but nowadays, in the way that it's morphed over 300 years, actually, if I go to Belgium and I hear people speaking Flemish, it's much more similar to Afrikaans than Dutch is. So I can understand Dutch, and if I speak Afrikaans, they can understand me. But like I say, interestingly, Flemish is more similar.
Right. So just on cue, we have Paul Bishop. So he,
your neighbor.
Yeah, so he is in Durban.
Yeah, shame, Paul. Yes, I was saying to James, you guys have literally been in the floods. It's been devastating to watch you guys getting more rain.
Yeah, I had to swim here today.
Oh, shame, man. Gosh, I hope your house is okay. I hope your suburb is okay.
No, we're okay. We're okay. The roads are problematic. But
yes. Now, I've seen some devastating photographs of entire roads just washed away.
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of roads, highways. So it's been a bit of a rough time.
Yeah. I was saying to James that the death toll from the first round of floods was about 400. I mean, what's the kind of casualty rate looking like this time around?
I actually don't know.
Yeah.
So, Paul, I guess your connection is not so stable that you can't come on video.
Connection is fine, but I can't. I checked my camera before I logged in here, but on Zoom, it doesn't seem to want to allow it. I don't know why.
Strange. Yeah, maybe check your settings.
Also with some of my partners, sometimes switching to Zoom, there obviously some issue in general.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, let's carry on. So, Paul, if you do get your camera working, then great, but not to worry if you don't. So, growing up as a child, did you have any memorable experiences that you'd like to share with us?
Gosh, now that's a left of center question.
Because maybe I'll jog your memory, because when I sent out the questionnaire, there's some things in there that I want to know more. So first of all, you mentioned about backpacking. So you went on a 4-year backpacking. So that was straight from school?
Yeah. And interestingly, today, 32 years ago, I started that journey. So I'd been 18 for about 6 weeks. As I said, I finished school when I was 17. And I'm the first person in my family, still the only person in my family to go to university. When I finished, I'd done very well at school academically, and I'd had all kinds of leadership positions. And so I wasn't entirely sure what to do at the end of school. And people were saying, well, you should go to university. And I thought, well, with what money? Because my parents didn't have the money. And my folks were both looking at me saying, well, we'd love to advise you, but we can't. We don't know how the university works. And then it was my mom who actually said, listen, I think you should take some time to go traveling. And I mean, this was 1990, obviously. Apartheid was still in force. South Africa was still quite insular. I'd never left the country. And I was so young. I mean, I was a baby. And fortunately, because I'm entitled to a Dutch passport, I could actually travel much more freely than you could on a South African passport at the time, and even now. And so I thought, actually, that sounds like a great idea. So, you know, now, of course, a lot of people do gap years, and it's quite taken for granted. But at the time, people looked at my parents like they were mad. She's 18 years old and she's going overseas by herself, all alone. What is wrong with you people? But actually, it was the best thing that I could have done. I was too young and naive and self-confident to be afraid. And I just thought, well, that's fine. I'll get on a plane. I'd always wanted to go to a kibbutz. And I still have the piece of paper that my dad wrote down the directions on. So he phoned the kibbutz from South Africa. Of course, everyone was very aware that this was very expensive. So he needed to talk quickly, explain to them that I was coming as a volunteer and how was I going to get there. Well, they said, well, from Tel Aviv, you catch this bus. And when that bus gets to this stop, you catch this bus. And then the third bus at this stop, you get out and you hitchhike to the kibbutz. Okay, well, here you go, Niv. Here's the piece of paper. Good luck. Hope you get there. And I got there, and you know, it was way before the days of email and WhatsApp, so I had to make a reverse charge phone call to let my parents know that I had arrived. And I came back for the first time 2.5 years later.
So how long were you in the car?
So in Israel, I was there for about 3 months, and then I went around the Middle East. And then ran out of money, so did some work in Greece, and then went over to the Oktoberfest, and then worked there, and then just kept traveling.
But you traveled with people, or on your own mainly, or how did that work?
Yeah, so I met up with people during the course of it all, but I went on my own and I came back on my own.
So the first destination you had were the kibbutz, and so that was already planned for a certain amount of time.
No, you pitch up at a kibbutz and you stay for as long as you're wanting
because
to,
there's
or
many,
as long as you wanted.
Yeah, my elder sister did something similar. She went to the kibbutz, but she went to different kibbutz in different areas of Israel.
Yeah.
But I think she went to one near Tel Aviv as well. But yeah, then you can stay as long as you want, or as short as you want, and move on somewhere else. So
yes,
I bet so that must have been a great experience.
It was. Look, I mean, I was so naive. I thought we were all going there to do virtuous volunteer work.
Yeah.
I mean, meanwhile, it was a big fat party. You know, people were drinking and partying every single night, which was fabulous. So it was a bit of a wake-up call for Miss Priss from the Girls' High. But I met wonderful people from all over the world, and it's a fabulous way to find your feet. You know, so it's not like landing in a city where suddenly you've got to find a place to stay, you've got to pay rent, you've got to try to make your very minimal money stretch. And you're also getting into a routine very quickly. I mean, you get up, you go to work, you come home, you watch TV, you pay the bills. I mean, you may as well be at home. There's no big deal, no big change or adventure doing that in London or New York. I mean, you're just living a life and having a routine. Whereas going to the kibbutz was fabulous. And like I say, in terms of finding my feet, meeting really cool people, hearing from them some interesting places to travel to, and then saying, fine, I'm going to go do some of that now as well. Because I've orientated myself and now I'm getting restless.
So when you got there, you met obviously other travelers from around the world doing the same thing.
Yes.
And then you went on with some of them, or one of them, to other places.
Yeah, so I went with some girls down to Egypt, went over with some other people to Turkey, then went over with one girl to Greece, where, we had both run out of money, so we both needed to find a job. Met up with some of the people from the kibbutz in Greece, one guy from Brazil, who subsequently became a very good friend. And you kind of just went from there.
So you kind of kept in touch with any of them from since then?
Yes, Marcus from Brazil. I mean, he's been out to South Africa. I've been to Brazil. We've met up with each other all over the world, in Italy, in the States.
So having done that like for 4 years, I mean, would you recommend that everybody should have that opportunity once they leave school to go and kind of find themselves and explore the world and do different things? Or do you think you should go to university first? Yeah,
look, I mean, I think it is so different for everyone. What I can say from my experience and contrasting it, with my friends, is there were very few friends of mine who were desperate to go to university, who had this great burning ambition. I think most of them, because you are so young, you know so little about yourself in the world, most of them were just being pushed to go by parents who were saying, you need to go because otherwise you're not going to get a job, and you can do what you want afterwards, but get a degree first.
Exactly.
And you know, I don't know any of my friends who were pushed to become chartered accountants or lawyers who are actually doing that. They did it to get their folks off their backs. And there's value in that. I mean, of course there is. And I think I can contrast it with the much bigger value that I got when I was ready to go to university and I knew what I wanted to study. And there was a real yearning to learn. And because I was paying for it myself, trust me, I maximized the opportunity. And so I think when I studied, I think it had much more power and relevance for me as a person, and I came at it very differently. And so I think different strokes, different folks, but I feel that certainly in my friend circle, those who were pushed missed out on a huge amount. And at times I wasn't sure that I'd made the right decision at all. I was thinking, gosh, what the hell am I going to do with my life? But of course it all works out. You know, life can only be understood backwards, but has got to be lived forwards. So
and when you did come back and you finally went to do studies and things, what did you study?
So I did a BA English and political science, which is actually what I'd always wanted to do. But I thought, oh gosh, only people who want to become teachers or unemployed drama students do a BA. And interestingly, had a very seminal conversation with somebody I was working with in London when I was there for a few months. He was a geologist, a British chap, who ended up getting one of 80 management positions, kind of graduate trainee positions at Lloyd's Bank. And I remember looking at him and saying, just help me out here. You know, so you studied rocks. How do you go from studying rocks to working in a bank at a senior level? And he said, no, you've misunderstood it completely. The way we think about it in the UK, or it may have just been the way he thought about it, but it was a light bulb moment in conversation. He said, the way we think about it is the fact that you've studied means that you have the capacity to learn. And so, you know, you're going to have to learn all manner of things. And the university degree is just a calling card and an entry criterion. It's not a final definition. I mean, of course, it's different if you're a professional. If you're a doctor, based you've studied medicine, you know, if you're a pilot and so on and so forth. But generally, in more open-ended professions, in a world of complexity and creativity, well, as wide a frame of reference and as wide a range of skills, the better.
Yeah, no, I like that. I also like kind of the entrepreneurial mindset in the way that sometimes you just have to go out there and believe in yourself and do something. And I mean, also learn from experience. I mean, the experience could be a bad one as well as a good one, but I mean, you learn. And I mean, looking at all the kind of different roles and things that you've done to get by. I mean, I just got kind of the list here, but you've done all sorts of things: chambermaid, dishwasher, apple picker. You know.
Yes, in the north of Italy.
Yeah, ice cream scooper. Yeah, and like all sorts of different things. So, I mean, that is also, I mean, just getting that experience alone, you get to meet different people, and you kind of know different aspects of life in doing that, because you see things through a different view than if you just went off to do one thing and that's all you ever did.
Yes, and I think in so many ways it was a far more formative experience then, in the absence of technology, than it can possibly be now. I mean, I ended up in jail the one night in Egypt, and my parents had no idea until 2 weeks later when I could actually phone them. You know, now you would get onto
so what happened there then? Because I saw the notes there, but you didn't say, how did you end up in jail? Hi, Paul.
Well, we got to a border crossing. So these 3 girls and I, who'd been traveling around Egypt, got to the border crossing in the Sinai Desert later than we thought, or later than we realized the border to Israel had closed. And so we were stuck. And we thought, well, we don't have any money to go back. We've just been dropped off by a taxi. We're going to sleep here. And the border guards weren't great. In fact, they were quite aggressive. And they were saying to us, if you sleep here, that's going to get your attention. So we were, quite, we were really quite scared actually. And then the taxi driver who had dropped us off said, look, well, you can come with me and stay with me in my house. So we thought, oh, well, make a sentence, frying pan fire.
Yeah.
But we really didn't have much of an option. We didn't know what else to do because we were completely stranded. And we went back with him to his house, and he was really nice. And his wife was very charming. Obviously, we could speak as much Arabic as they could speak English. I didn't know. So it was all hand signals and what have you. And then the next thing, the cops appeared out of the blue. So we're in the middle of nowhere. It was a rural area, middle of nowhere. In the middle of the night, these cops pitch up and they say, we're not allowed to stay with him. We need to come with him to jail.
Eh?
So if I think about it now.
But for what?
So, I beg your pardon?
Why?
Oh, there was something about you couldn't stay with an Egypt. I think they made something up, but something about it. You can't stay with Egyptian nationals without permission. Some very convoluted story. Again, minimal English and Arabic.
Oh, yeah.
And so we got on the back of their bakkie, their pickup truck, and we drove in the dark, not knowing where we were going. 4 girls, 2 cops, and we ended up in the jail, the local jail, full of only men, and none of the cell doors were closed. So here come in these 4 white young Western girls in a jail full of men. It was, it's crazy. I've got some photographs still somewhere in a box of us being in this cell.
But that's more scary than staying with the taxi driver.
Well, sure. We would be quite happy to stay with the taxi driver and his wife. That was not our choice. And then the next morning we woke up and they let us out. We went to the border. We got back to Israel. And, I can tell it with a laugh and just roll my eyes and think that was crazy. And of course, it could have ended so differently and so badly wrong, and it didn't. And it was about 2 weeks later that I managed to get hold of my parents and say, oh, by the way, no, good grief, no. What else has happened in the last 2 weeks?
And then your sisters went on to do something similar? Not go to jail, but to travel? Yeah,
so my middle sister came to London, and then my younger sister went to a kibbutz and also did a lot more of a backpacking trip.
All right, excellent. And they went off, when they came back, they went to study as well, or they did it differently?
No, so my sister's qualified as a chef, and then my younger sister didn't want to study, so she's worked most of her career.
All right, okay. And yeah, there's another interesting one, a story that you ended up on a yacht overnight as well, another overnight adventure. But this,
interesting things happen to me when the sun goes down. So I was working in the south of France during the Cannes Film Festival, so actually around about this time of year, and managed to get a job as a deckhand. And the captain, it was a big boat by anybody's stretch of the imagination, but relative to some of those ones that come into Cannes, so big they can't even come into the harbour. This was quite modest. So it was only myself and the captain.
You could only fit 1 helicopter on it.
Something like that. So it was just myself and the captain, and I think there was 1 other person. So 3 of us as crew, and then the owner and his wife, and he was French. And everyone disappeared the one weekend, and I was the only one on the boat because I had no money to go anywhere, and I was quite happy to sleep there, thanks very much, and going to Cannes for the day. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I still don't know what the problem was, but the boat had sprung a leak, and there I just saw water coming in because an alarm had gone off because of the leak. So of course, that got me out of a dead sleep, and I'm trying to find the source of the alarm, and I go down. And I realized this thing's leaking. What the hell do I do now? And I was in such a state, in such a panic. I ran out onto the deck. I was drenched with water because I was trying to what I could do. Of course, I could do nothing. Ran out onto the deck and managed to get help from another boat. And frankly, I don't think they were grateful enough when they got back to say, well, you saved our boat. I think they still looked at me a little bit askance, thinking, what did you do to make it start to leak?
Did you pull the plug out?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So the boat didn't sink?
No, the boat didn't sink. I didn't drown. It all worked out well in the end.
All right. But you lost your job?
No, actually, I kept my job. But it finished. It finished when the summer was over.
You then became captain?
Captain was never in my calling.
Okay. So let's kind of fast forward now to I mean, you've done many jobs. I know I've looked through a lot of them on your LinkedIn profile. So maybe you can just say some of the memorable ones, and then we'll kind of skip through those to where you are now. And how did you get to doing what you're doing now?
Yeah. You know, James, I think all of my jobs have been memorable, because I was saying to somebody the other day, none of my jobs have actually just been about a job. None of them have just been about moving things from an inbox to an outbox and paying the mortgage. They've all been about something that really mattered to me, and an opportunity to do something that I thought was meaningful. And so they traversed all kinds of sectors. I was the CEO of 2 large NGOs. I worked in the charitable sector. I was at the central bank. I was in a commercial bank. So Standard Bank is the largest bank by assets in Africa, and I was the head of leadership and culture across that group. And so all of those have
a lot in finance then.
No, actually it was only Standard Bank, and because I was heading up leadership.
I bank with Standard Bank actually.
Oh, really? I hope they look after you.
But not in South Africa, in the Isle of Wight.
Ah, yes, yeah, they've got. So I've been over to the Isle of Wight. I went over to Jersey, the Isle of Man, and so I was never directly.
So is it a good bank?
It's the largest bank by assets in the continent, and it's got good strategic relationships with ICBC in China. They're pretty impressive, yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I've been with a number of years and been okay with them.
Yeah. So not necessarily in fashion. I mean, the central bank, again, I was in strategy and in the learning. I headed up the academy, and then NGOs or anything but finance. I mean, in fact, it's a dearth of finance. You're always trying to raise money. And so, like I say, the work that I've done has not just been about a job. It's been about some kind of meaningful impact. And then 4 years ago.
You're author, are you a book author?
Yes.
Right. Please tell us about your book and what type of book is it? And have you got it there?
Yes, I have got a copy here. So this is it. It was published 2 years ago. Can you read the title?
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's actually been the bestseller for the publisher for 2 years in a row, which is great.
Yeah, I'm collecting books from my guests, right? I've got, oh yeah, no, actually, just bear with me for a second. So this was a guest.
Oh, fabulous.
Right.
Shy Girl's Guide. Oh, nice. A friend of mine is writing a book.
Right, I've got this one, which Catherine, you'll know.
Ah, fabulous.
Yeah, so he's in Australia. All right. So, and then the other week was this guest. All right. So I've probably got some others somewhere as well. So yeah, I'd be interested in your book.
Okay, I'll send you a copy.
Excellent. Yeah, I'd love it. So yeah, we should also help kind of promote it a bit as well, if you want. I mean, I can do kind of a quick video. Normally I do like, yeah, I've got my book from so-and-so, and then I never get time to read them though, that's the problem.
So you're promoted without knowing what's in it. I'll tell you what's in it and I'll tell you what to say.
Right. Okay. So, well, I can say I've received it, I haven't yet read it.
Yes. But I have read glowing reviews of it. You can say that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And that you were my guest on the show and everything else. So yeah, we can help there. Right. So you said is it pretty new then? You've just launched it or something?
No, it's about 2.5 years old. So I wrote it at the start of COVID. Actually, 2 years. Yeah.
And yeah, how's it been? I mean, the success or anything?
Yeah, it's actually, it's the most astonishing feeling. I'm sure you must be able to relate, James, but I mean, to open up my LinkedIn messages and get messages from people all over the world saying, I've just read your book, or I've read an article of yours, and you can't understand how timely it was and how helpful it was. I mean, that's an astonishing feeling to kind of send something out into the world and have all kinds of ripples come back.
Oh yeah, I've also got another one. I forgot that one as well.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, he was my mentor actually.
No ways.
Yeah, you know Kevin Harrington? Oh, okay. But I did write a book, or my son. So this is a children's book, right?
Oh, fabulous.
It's a bedtime storytelling book. So, yeah, I think I've probably got some more in there somewhere. Right?
Well, you've got no shortage of cupboards. So I imagine you can have no shortage of books hidden away there.
Oh, there are books everywhere. The problem is, I always say I'm spoilt for choice which one to read, you see. So,
Yeah.
but I actually switched to audio books, because if I was in the car and it's a long journey, it'd be great to listen to the book.
Yeah.
And so I cheat a bit, but I always like the physical copy. You've got to have a physical copy as well.
Yes. Yes. I've tried Audible and tried audiobooks, and I can see the sense in them and the attraction, but they just haven't worked for me.
Yeah. But did you create the physical book only, or did you do an audio book and
No,
others?
so there's not an audio book, but there is an ebook,
Right.
which is what's made it easier for people all over the place to get it. They've been able to get it on Amazon.
All right, excellent. Because I know Boyan normally downloads them. But audio, I mean, we're going to create an audio, so maybe that's something to consider if you wanted as well. And I mean, we're using a publisher in the UK, and part of the deal is we get 3 versions: the physical, ebook, and the audio.
Nice.
And the audio, you can pick a man or a woman as the kind of the voice for your story.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a whole industry out there and a whole world to navigate.
Yeah. So anyway, let's kind of move on from there. So how did you get to doing what you're doing now? And what are you doing?
Answer the first question first. I was retrenched. There was a restructuring, and actually it was fantastic. I think the timing was perfect. And I remember where I was and phoning my partner and saying, I've just been retrenched. I'm so excited, because I think I was increasingly chafing at some of the necessary restrictions of a large company. And I just, gosh, this is becoming really unbearable for me. I'm getting very frustrated. And so then suddenly a retrenchment was the best thing that could have happened. And then the question was, well, okay, what am I going to do next? And I thought, I can take on another executive role. I've been an executive since I was 29. But actually, as much as I've loved and been profoundly grateful for and immensely proud of all the roles that I've taken on, I don't want to take on another role. I think all of a sudden, now it feels like if I were to, there would be a trade-off in autonomy and variety that I couldn't live with. It's never occurred to me that there was a trade-off before, because even though there was, I was just loving what I was doing. Now suddenly it felt like, it doesn't matter how much I love what I'm doing, I'm going to be chafing for the rest of my life. So then it was, okay, well then back yourself and double down and set yourself up for the next 20 or 30 years. And be very clear, I don't want to take on another role. And so what I do now is a strategy consultant for a number of anchor clients. So I help them with their strategy locally and internationally. I lecture on office politics and power. I write for a number of publications, all off the back of the book. And I'm a PhD student, looking at the intersection between strategy and power, and how power actually is a far bigger determinant of the strategy that happens, a far bigger determinant than the technically right answer.
Wow. And typically, who are your clients in for this?
So the strategy work is a couple of anchor clients that I've had for a few years, and I like to keep the strategy work just for them.
But they'd be kind of corporate clients.
No, so they're not listed, which is wonderful. So they're large. They turn over a few £1 million. In fact, the whole group is worth about £700 million. So they're not insignificant, but they're not listed, which is wonderful. So you get the best of both.
Yeah, I much prefer that.
Yeah, no, it's fabulous. And then the lecturing, I do it through a number of business schools and on a number of leadership development programs.
Okay,
and then
the lecturing, that's in person, or you can do that on Skype?
It's both. It's been in person and online. And then I write for Harvard Business Review and I write for Inc. Africa. So I have a monthly column for Inc. Africa, and every so often my editor and I at Harvard Business Review sit and think what might be a good idea, and then we come up with another article.
All right. So you write for Harvard Business Review. Excellent. Yeah, I used to read a lot of that all the time. And Yeah, there was a very interesting one that they did a number of years ago. They talked about purpose in the workplace.
Oh, nice.
And it was a great article because they said they looked at the top kind of 500 corporate clients in the US.
Yeah.
And then they looked at them and then they thought, well, they're successful. They've got good vision. They've got good strategy. They're making money. Shareholders are happy, everything. But then they asked them, what was the purpose? And that was the biggest problem. So then trying to address purpose in the workplace.
Yeah, I put up a LinkedIn post the other day that got a lot of responses. And I said in it, you know, whenever somebody says to me that the purpose of a company is to make money,
Mm-hmm.
I say, well, that's like saying that the purpose of life is to breathe.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got to breathe to survive. And of course, you've got to make money. But is that it? And there's got to surely be something bigger than that, something more useful and valuable and impactful than that. And so how you live such that you are able to breathe, what you do with your breaths, how you run a business such that you are able to make money, what you do with that money, how you minimize the kind of externalities that are a feature of so many companies, you know, public costs and private profits. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Just finished watching 𝗘𝗔𝗖𝗪, you know, that series with Michael Keaton, and finished reading Empire of Pain about the Sacklers and Purdue Pharma. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. It's absolutely devastating. And this is all real costs and real lives and billions of dollars that have gone off to a family. And they, you know, well, I mean, we don't even have to go into it. It's well documented. But I mean, my hair was standing up on end reading this stuff because I've heard about the opioid epidemic in the US. I mean, I think you'd have to have been living under a rock not to have. But to actually realize how orchestrated and deliberate it was. And again, like I say, the public costs and the private profits and the co-opting of regulators and the buying up of reality and crafting reality with no bearing on facts, no bearing on empirical evidence or data or research. And to create an entire industry that was lucrative beyond belief and destroyed people in the process.
Yeah, completely agree. And it's a topic that, I mean, I get involved in kind of these conversations all the time, and you can go off for hours talking about them.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, purpose for me, many years ago, I tried to introduce purpose in the workplace. And to understand the kind of two parts of that, there was purpose of the business. I mean, what's it? Why they're in business? What's the purpose of doing what they're doing? And then the people. What was the purpose of the people? And what was their purpose being there? Not just doing a 9-to-5 job, but are they contributing to something that's driving their purpose? And yeah, it wasn't accepted really. People didn't want to talk about it. The company, I asked them, well, you will work for this company. What's the vision of the company? No idea. And they're trying to second guess what it was. What is it that you're trying to do? And they said, oh, well, our customers, our internal customers, the next department. We just do what we're told to satisfy that department. And I thought, that is the purpose of you going to work? I just found it, yeah, strange. But anyway, nobody was ready for it then. And yeah, it was kind of a poo-poo topic. So I kind of did other things, and I focused more on storytelling because you can put that under a storytelling bracket as well. But anyway, so your clients are, you mentioned international as well. So you get to travel to see them as well as a.
Yes, I'm in Denmark in 2.5 weeks' time, and I can't wait to help. I'm on the faculty of a leadership program there.
Sorry, where did you say?
In Copenhagen.
Ah, all right, okay.
So to actually, for the first time in 2.5 years, actually be able to leave South Africa.
Oh, you've not traveled since then?
No, went to the Okavango Delta in December in Botswana, which was absolutely beautiful, but it's been so restricted and all of my clients have moved online that between the lockdowns and the fact that clients have said, look, let's just rather do it online, I haven't been able to. So I'm actually extending the trip somewhat to just soak up being in a foreign country again.
Have you been there before?
I have, but 30 years ago as a backpacker, when I was trying the impossible task, even in 1991, of trying to live on £10 a day, because I was so cash strapped. Trust me, you cannot live on £10 a day. And you, even 30 years ago, you could not. So, you know, the Scandinavian countries are outrageously expensive.
Yeah.
And they were definitely way too rich for my taste. I had to go to cheaper countries pretty quickly. So I spent, I think, 2 days in Copenhagen. And that was it. And then I hightailed it somewhere.
Very expensive.
Yes.
Especially alcohol.
Yeah, I know. Look, I remember when I was in Vienna and I went to see the Vienna Boys Choir sing the one Sunday at the Habsburg church, cathedral, whatever it's called. And I was down to my last £2 before I got on the train that night, and then was going to be able to have somewhere to sleep. But I was keeping to a very strict budget. But I thought, this is Vienna. I need to have a slice of 𝗧𝗪𝗏 and I need to have a coffee. And I think £2 just about covered it. And I'll have the fondest memories of Vienna for the rest of my life, because I had nowhere to go and no money to go anyway. So I just sat at this cafe in the center of Vienna reading my book for the whole day. And nobody bothered me. My one slice of cake and my one coffee, and I think my measly little tip. But I mean, when they talk about cafe culture, they were right. And nobody shooed me out to say we need a more lucrative and paying customer, sweetheart. It was wonderful.
I used to like going to a cafe, not necessarily to work. I was always distracted by the noise, but just to observe.
Yeah, no, it's wonderful. And you don't see much of that anymore, people watching, because everyone's on their phones.
Yeah, people watching. I love it. I mean, I know, like, if I get the train or public transport into the city, I'm just looking around at people, and they don't even notice you, because their head is buried in their phone. Yeah. Right. So I was thinking that it must be difficult to date someone these days, because you're never making eye contact. Right? You might stand beside your perfect partner, but you're both looking at your phone. And then you're probably on a dating agency or a chat group or something, and then you probably, your perfect partner is beside you, you've not even seen them. Yeah,
actually, I had the loveliest story. I always am intrigued by how people get together. The loveliest story was an ex-colleague of mine who, at the end of the year, was wanting to fly to the States. I think he was going to go see family and go skiing. And so it's obviously kind of go from summer in South Africa to winter in the States. And it had been a really rough year, and he had great frequent flyer miles. So he thought, stuff this, I'm flying first class, because it's a long haul from South Africa to the States. I think it's about 16 and a half, 17 hours. And he thought, this is it. I'm going to use my frequent flyers to upgrade to the best possible seat. And there was just a runaround after a mess up of his booking. And he was so angry because by the time they resolved it, all the business class and first class seats had gone. So here he is in cattle class, really grumpy, really, really massively underwhelmed with SAA, and ready to fire off a very snotty email when he got back. But of course, lo and behold, the person he's sitting next to for 17 hours, he strikes up a conversation with. And by the time he gets off in New York and she continues on to Canada, they've got each other's numbers, and now they've been married for 10 years.
Wow.
So if he had sat in first class, you know, the woman he could have married would have been sitting right at the back, and he'd never have known.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, I could tell some stories about traveling on planes. I used to be on a plane every week for 20 years.
Oh, yeah, no, that loses its attraction very quickly.
I was actually happy to work from home after that.
Yeah.
But then now working from home, it's nice to actually get out, like you said, physically meet people.
Yes.
So you need a combination. So you contribute towards 𝗏 magazine. So is that something completely different? I mean,
completely different too?
I mean, to the Harvard Business Review.
Well, I mean, look, it's got a great reputation and a global reach. The style and the format is obviously different. But I pretty much write in both of them on the same things: strategy, culture, power, leadership. And when there's something worth saying, those are great platforms to say it in.
Was it easy to become a contributor towards those?
No, it actually wasn't. Well, it was actually relatively for me, which is incredibly wonderful, frankly. So Inc. approached me. They saw my stuff on LinkedIn and they liked it. And they said, would you like to have a regular column? Yes, I would. And then the HBR stuff was through a closed network where HBR had reached out to this network and said, we're trying to expand our reach beyond the standard academics, the standard business, US-based business leaders. So we're wanting to call on more diverse people with more diverse perspectives and stories. And so, you know, can you open the invitation to your membership base and get them to submit? So, you know, you had to go through the same process and the same rigor. And so I submitted 3 options. And they only chose one, but I was also the only person from this network who had anything chosen. And then, you know, as with all things, the moment you've got your foot in the door and you've done one, then it becomes just so much easier to do more because you've delivered something of value, you've got the relationships, and it can kind of take on a life of its own from there.
Are these monthly editions?
No, so in the last 6 months, I've written 2 articles and we've got a 3rd one in the works. So
okay.
it's not in the normal print edition, it's the online edition.
Oh, you get paid for that?
No, good Lord. I
No?
would pay them. Are you kidding me? It's like, to be able to say I write for Harvard Business Review, I'll pay them.
Oh, okay then. Right. Maybe I'll put my name out, see if they come to me.
There you go. Hey, but don't ask them what they're going to pay you, James. It'll end the conversation, okay?
Yeah, exactly. So where you are in your business now and in your life in general, I mean, you're in a good position. You're where you want to be.
Yes. Yeah, I said to somebody the other day, I think I'm in the prime of my life, which is quite a wonderful thing to recognize and be able to say and to acknowledge. So
business-wise, you're doing okay and you're happy with that?
Yeah, you know, I probably only work about a week a month. And in between I do my studies and I go traveling and I write. And that's really rather nice, thanks.
So you did mention there was another pivotal change in your life on a health reason. So how's that now?
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I had cancer 5 years ago, and, you know, I think there are all manner of things that will be crucible experiences in our life. You know, a health scare, death, divorce, these things that happen in life that get your attention in no small way, shape or form. And I think those crucible experiences, we can't escape. But what they mean for us, where they take us, I mean, that becomes quite an important thing to think about.
Exactly. So anyway, congratulations on overcoming that.
Oh, thanks. It wasn't up to me. It was up to my oncologists. They were fabulous.
Okay, so we're kind of getting near the end now. So I just wanted to ask if you've got any questions to the audience or the audience have got any questions to you. Yeah, Boyan.
I'm a subscriber of Harvard Business Review and would love to read some of your content. If you can.
Oh, lovely. Well, thanks. It's all up on my LinkedIn profile.
I'm a big fan, but not subscriber, I think. So I'm regularly reading it because it's a great magazine. It's encouraging people, a lot of case studies and life lessons. This is something that. So I would love to share some content that you contributed. So to read some of your creatures, your contributors.
Thanks.
Be happy to see. This is my question. If you can share some links.
Yeah, look, it's all up on my LinkedIn profile, so you can find it there. If you have any problems, just let me know, and I can find the URLs and put them together.
I started following you. We'll send you a connection request.
Okay, lovely, lovely.
Okay, have you got any questions to the audience?
No, I suppose it would be fascinating to know what, if anything, out of everything we discussed, most struck them, either as interesting or worth thinking about, or even, I don't know, completely odd. especially poor Catherine, for whom it must be past 11 o'clock at night now.
Yes.
Good grief, you are a stayer.
I was just saying, it's just really fascinating, you know, just to hear your story, and it just goes to show that, you know, there is no one straight road in life. You know, I think obviously in my experience and on my journey that I'm going as well, you know, everyone just wants to be one thing, but you've got to a point in your life right now where, you know, you've been everything you could possibly be and still becoming as well. And it's just very fascinating to actually hear your story.
Thanks.
Very inspiring.
Thank you. I've got I can't say, no, I've lent it to a friend and the silly sausage hasn't given it back yet. But I mean, because you strike me as fairly young still, Catherine. There's a fantastic book called Range by David Epstein, and I'm recommending it to as many people as I can, particularly people in their 20s and 30s, because what he talks about is there's such a pressure to become to become an expert, a deep specialist. And the world needs that, no question. You know, the level of complexity, but then the level of deep, deep, deep diving into one very narrow part of reality also has its trade-offs. And he says, actually, when we're faced with complexity and with the unknown, actually deep technical expertise is not going to help as much as a range, a wide frame of reference. And so in my edition, one of the endorsements comes from Malcolm Gladwell, and he says, I've seldom so enjoyed being proven wrong, because he upends this idea of 10,000 hours as being the only route to success. And I think particularly for people in their 20s and 30s, that's what your 20s and 30s are supposed to be about. Figuring out a whole bunch of things as opposed to I need an answer, the answer for the rest of my life. I mean, you're cutting off all kinds of possibilities way too soon, but the pressure is enormous to do precisely that.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. But yeah, it was just really fascinating story. Yeah. And I know there's so many more that you did share as well. So I'll have to find some out as well.
I love you.
I'm 27, by the way. So yeah, I'm quite old.
You know, if I could reach through the screen and smack you, I would.
It was a joke.
Okay, thank heavens. Thank heavens. But you know, I must say, I was speaking to a friend of mine the other day, and this quarter life crisis thing is real. I mean, she's 25 and she's going through a real crisis of meaning and identity. Because I think the pace of things and the kind of frame of reference of what you could or should be doing by the time you're 25 or 30. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg was a billionaire, so where are you, you know?
True.
Yeah, I'll wait to hear Catherine's story. I mean,
so
have you as a guest another time. So you did write something. I asked you kind of, have you got something kind of a memorable thing, a call to action or something you want to leave the audience with? And you wrote something very nice in there. Now, do you want me to read it out or can you remember?
Yes, please, because I've gone blank on what I wrote.
All right, okay then. So it's kind of something memorable to leave the audience with, is to really, really feel the truth that we all have two lives, and the second one starts the moment we understand we only have one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to elaborate on that.
That's too deep for us low class South Africans.
Sorry, Paul.
Are you based in South Africa?
Yeah, I'm in Joburg.
Joburg. Looks like a Cape Town bookshelf behind you there.
Why? Is it only people in Cape Town who read?
Is that one of these?
It's
real.
Not a fake.
It's not a fake screen.
No,
it's not a fake.
It's a real. I mean, a lot of people have this image behind them, and it's fake. But
very impressive.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, my partner says, of course, that the size of your bookshelf is inversely proportional to your degree of knowledge and sense of competence. So I'm like, shut up.
I need your book to put on my shelf now, so I'll have a collection.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, so is there any final remarks you want to leave us with before we kind of wrap this up?
No, other than, thank you for the opportunity. There's a wonderful quote that I've always loved: the shortest distance between two people is a story. And
exactly.
the chance to share a story with people on all manner of places that I'll probably never meet in person, but I could spend an hour of my life with. It's always a pleasure. So thank you.
No, you're welcome. So you've been an absolutely fantastic guest, our 85th guest. I had to double check actually. So, so a landmark also for us, and yeah, some fantastic people that have been guests. We do have the recordings. This is recorded, and they're put on my YouTube channel. Unfortunately, I have to put them unlisted because there's copyright infringement because of the singer, because she sings a cover song. But nevertheless, once you see the links, you can look through the others and whatever. So you can use this as memorabilia. You can do what you want with it. You can cut and paste bits out. Basically, it's yours just to say kind of a thank you for being on the show and being our 85th wonderful guest. So yeah, I wish everyone a fantastic weekend. And thanks once again.
You got to send your congratulations because I came on more or less on time.
Oh yes, congratulations.
Yes.
Yeah, normally Paul's connection disappears. He's normally an hour late, so he comes on at the end.
Because they confuse us with Switzerland time. And the Swiss keep changing their time. They don't know what time it is. You know, so
no, all of these guys do it.
But they have the most basic watches.
And yeah, a huge thanks to Boyan for being the most regular participant on basically all of them, and Catherine for being up so late. I don't know what's the time now. Must be late.
It's just 11:05.
Ah, the night is young. Friday night.
Time to go to disco. Time to go to disco.
Time to go partying. All right. Okay, I want to hear your story because I'm interested in kind of Tasmania and where you come from, and that. So you'd have to honor us with being a guest another time. Okay, so yes, thank you. So thank you everyone once again. It's great to have you here, and 𝗬𝗢𝗨𝗥, an absolute pleasure to have you as our guest. So thank you very much.
Pleasure was mine. Enjoy the weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
You too. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.